So, I filmed this video before, and then my laptop broke, so I lost all the footage. And I was really hoping that I'd just be able to go back on the laptop and save it, but it's been too long, I have to refilm it. And, you know, I could be mad about this. Or, you know, you can laugh at the fact that the video that I'm having to refilm is Groundhog Day. I have been patiently waiting for Groundhog Day to come back to the UK because the first time it came here, I missed it. And that was one of my biggest regrets as it went on to Broadway, it released its cast recording, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Now I have finally seen Groundhog Day, but would I see it again and again and again? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie. I talk about theatre. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do video essays, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me out, it helps out the channel. Let's move on to review this show. This is not an easy show to translate to stage. It is really tough for two main reasons. Number one, I think the film is so iconic, and it has a problem that a lot of musicals that are adapting like really famous films have, in the fact that its main star, Bill Murray, is one of the key reasons that makes it so iconic. It's going to be tough, it's always going to be tough to recapture that magic. And number two, Groundhog Day is, by its own concept, a kind of repetitive story. And the repetitive nature of the show could very easily bring it down if it's not handled very carefully. But I think it's so clear that the creatives knew exactly how to tackle these two main issues and create a musical that really celebrates the original film, but also kind of goes in its own direction and really takes the time to make it work within a musical theatre style. The way it kind of makes up the loop, it gives you the basic gist and then moves on very quickly. The way that they adapted Phil Connors, feeling like a very nice mixture of faithful to the kind of style of Bill Murray, but also giving Andy Karl a lot to play with and a lot to grow with and a lot to do to make the role his own. And Tim Minchin. It is a very strong adaptation that really hits that balance that is extremely hard to hit, of being faithful and going in your own direction to make sure that something that wasn't originally a musical can work on stage. And work it does. This story of growth, you see Phil become a better person. And it still allows itself to play around with time and make sure that the pace still flows extremely well. And then there's the comedy. Just like the original film, it really sells itself on its comedic moments. And what I really enjoy is a lot of these are very new for the musical. It hasn't just taken the best jokes from the film and kind of copied them down. It allows itself to find its own comedy, whether that's within the over-the-top reactions from Andy Karl, or some really great funny lines within the songs. Groundhog Day, the musical, is faithful to the original film, but what it has is its own style. It hasn't copied things note for note, it's allowed itself time to grow and to really adapt itself to stage and the musical theatre style of storytelling. But I think it's the music of this show that is just so genius. Tim Minchin is a genius. There is no doubt about it. He is 2 for 2 on musicals, and I just want to see him write more because he has this style that just works so well within musical theatre. His lyrics are so clever. And honestly, I just love a lyricist who loves wordplay. I love it. I think this is evident through a lot of Tim Minchin's work in musical theatre. Take Revolting Children, or Too Late for You We Are Revolting, and like spelling things out and that like playing with the style of musical theatre songwriting. And that translates into Groundhog Day as well. The best line in the entire show. One of my favourite lines in musical theatre history. Who needs enemas with friends like these? It's so joyous. I'm sorry. It's camp. It's camp. And do you know what's camp? Musical theatre. And I love that. Minchin's lyrics are just... I live for Tim Minchin's lyrics in any musical he writes. And that continues with Groundhog Day. but it's also the score, his music. There's so many beautiful motifs in this show. And they never feel like they become too repetitive. There's so many different variations of them. They're always ever changing, just as we see Phil Connors do throughout the musical. This same motif, just like the same day that's repeated, but with something changed. And as Phil grows more and more, and as he learns more and more, the motifs kind of adapt themselves. And oh, it's genius. It's so good. 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 And then there's the absolutely impressive staging. First of all, this musical had like 6 revolves on Broadway. Like, it had so many revolves, and they have taken all of them out for the Old Vic production. And the fact that without them, it's still so slick with all of its various moving parts is extremely impressive. It flows really well, the transitions are easy when we get scenes that tend to repeat themselves over and over again. It's very quick as we head backwards. And then there's all the magic. Oh my god. There is one sequence within this musical that is it's legendary. And it's the Hope sequence. I don't want to spoil it too much because honestly, it's one of the most powerful and like, it's a very dark song, but the way that they stage it is you're watching it, and as it unfolds, you know exactly what's going to happen. You know that Phil Connors is going to wake back up the next day. But it kind of builds itself up more and more to the point where you're like, okay, how are they going to get away with it this time? How is he going to end up back in that bed this time? And it happens, and you're like, what? You're like, whoa. It's fantastic. That's the best way I can describe it. It's like, whoa. There you go. Put that on your marketing board, Old Vic. Put that below the neon sign. It's like, whoa. Ellie Talks Theatre. This cast are fantastic. And first of all, I just want to give a shout out to everyone, because this is not an easy show to kind of go about with every single night because of how much it repeats. You've got to think, this ensemble, who like don't change that much, are repeating the same scenes kind of over and over again with only like Andy Karl kind of switching things up. The fact that they manage to do it every single night is incredibly impressive. Let's talk about our 2 stars, starting with Andy Karl. The second you see his portrayal, you understand exactly why they brought him back. He has so much fun in this role. He is an absolute masterclass in how to make an audience fall in love with an unlikable protagonist. The way that he grows, the way that he adapts, you are rooting for him. You are absolutely rooting for him to become a better person. And the slight ways that Andy Karl endears you to Phil Connors, from his reactions to the completely unbelievable situation he's in, there are some just phenomenal expressions that Andy Karl does, and it is hilarious to watch. And it's like giant reactions to just something repeating, and everyone around him just looking at him like, what? And then there's Tanisha Spring, who plays Rita, the love interest in the show. These 2 are the main presents in the musical, and I really like Rita's journey through the show. And I really love how we kind of learn more about Rita as Phil does. The Act 1 finale is one of my favourites, and one of my favourite performances that Spring gives. As we kind of learn more about her, learn about her childhood, learn about the type of man she wants. And it's a very nice twist, and I love this in the film as well. It's a nice twist on a kind of building up of a relationship, where Phil kind of takes the time to grow, and eventually they can come together. I absolutely love these 2 in this musical. As well as all of our ensemble supporting performances. Everyone else in this musical kind of does like a supporting ensemble role. It's very much on the 2 leads, and then everyone else is ensemble with their kind of minor roles, and everyone within this show gets their moment to shine. You know exactly who each of these characters are and their archetype within the town. My highlights being Annie Wenzak, who plays Mrs. Lancaster, Billy Nevers, who plays Fred, along with Camila Fernandez, who plays Debbie. Eve Norris gets this fantastic number in the opening of Act 2. This lovely slow ballad that really eases you back into the show and kind of like pulls the rug out from under you a little bit with her character. And then there's also Ned, played by Andrew Langtry, who again gets a very similar moment towards the end of Act 2, where he starts out the show as this character who just brings so much annoyance to Phil Connors, and eventually you learn more about him, you learn about his backstory, you learn about the type of person he is and what he's lost. Groundhog Day is a musical that should not work, and yet it's just been paired with a creative team who understand completely how to adapt it to stage. It is a fantastic adaptation of such a beloved film that really captures everything that works about the film, but also gives itself the space to have its own identity and to adapt itself to work within a musical theatre style. With some absolutely fantastic performances, some magic that will leave you wondering how they did it, and that same story all about growth and taking the time to really appreciate everything that is great about life. Groundhog Day the musical is something that you must not miss. It's an easy 5-star show. But what do you think? Have you seen the musical either on Broadway or off West End? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me out and helps out the channel. There's some links to my other videos on the screen right now and a link to my Instagram if you want to drop me a follow over there. But that's it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!